I save my agency 3 hours on a weekly basis using an automation that converts video tutorials like these into valuable text content for LinkedIn. In this video, I'm going to show you and explain how it works, display a live demo of the system, and even break down key components so you can adjust it to your own workflow needs. And everything that I've used to make the system will be available to you in the description below. Cool, so let's just jump into the Figma board real quick, because even though it's a simple setup, I want to explain to you the real value behind this and the use cases that you can implement this with. So what it does is it essentially picks up whenever I post a new video, and has a whole bunch of different modules that I gave it, which allow it to transcribe the video, feed it into ChatGPT. Now this ChatGPT module is prompted in a way that structures the output in LinkedIn kind of format. I'll show you the prompt in a second. Sends an image API request, and then provides a notification to my business partner, in this case an email, when it's done. And the reason I do that is because we usually, well, before we had to communicate between ourselves when I actually posted a video and what the steps were behind it, and go back and forth. And I figured this whole process kind of took us about 3 hours per week, depending on how many times I posted. And for his LinkedIn strategy as well, it took a very significant toll. So I reckon, well, okay, if we can at least make a very good draft version out of that, where we can implement and display these steps with a valuable image to go with it, so he doesn't have to then go back into ChatGPT and then search for a valuable image, then it's a very good way to, you know, leverage the automations that we do make and sell for other business owners. So if you are a content creator, then you have like this automation to leverage your content into different platforms and different formats. But even if you're not a content creator, then you could maybe do something like watch someone else's content, you know, and leverage that into putting it into different places for you. So let's say you're looking at someone else's content and then you put it all into a text format that you like. You have the image API request to have a visual aspect to it, and then you decide to put everything to a Google Doc. You're only changing essentially like 2 to 3 modules here in this setup, but the skeletons of the automation that I've got is pretty much the same, right? So I hope that communicates like the value. Even though it's a simple setup, it's quite important to have like something like this in your arsenal, I would say. So anyway, moving on, this is the setup here. I've set up the trigger to just run once, but if you want it to actually run manually, then you'd do something like this. So you just make a new module here. You'd have a new webhook for YouTube. You obviously need to connect a YouTube account, and then what you do is you fill out the channel ID, maybe when you want it published, and then how many results you actually want it to bring. I usually just put 1 because it doesn't run that often. But anyway, so you put that channel ID in. For me, I've just got my normal one. And then if you want it to run automatically, then you just click from now on. For this test purpose, I'm just doing it manually just to show you guys. But here it is. So if I click run once, it's going to pick up a video. Now it's scraping the video using these modules here that I'll go into in a second. Now we're generating the LinkedIn post. So we're breaking it down into different steps. And now we've generated a prompt for the image API, which I'll break down in a second. But it's something that makes everything really cost effective. We have passed the data through into a format that we like it. Now the image that we've generated here has been transformed to binary data, and everything has been chunked up into this one email module, which we've sent to my business partner to make a new LinkedIn post. So let's check that out. Awesome, so as you can see, he's received the email. Now it's not in the best structured way, and I'll show you why in a second. But essentially, if we take this and to ChatGPT and show and see like what it would look like with a formatted way, then it would look something like this, you know, so nice and formatted. All right, so breaking it down even more, what we've done here is we've scraped the data, and what these modules here do is, well, first of all, I need to say that you could very well use an Apify scraper, which, if you don't know, Apify is a service that lets you scrape other platforms very easily and make as a native integration with Apify, so you could very easily map the results. But in this case, obviously keep bearing in mind that we want something that's cheap or free in this case, and I use this API here. So it's called YouTubeTranscript.io, where you can go into the API and go within API, the dashboard, click on API here, and you can make an API key from there. Now, what this would mean is that we make a custom request, which also means that we get a whole bunch of data that we need to parse as a JSON. So that's what that is doing there. And as you can see it in this output area here, we get so much data and so much of it that we don't want, right? And on top of that, the actual information doesn't come as one transcript. So the transcript isn't just one field or a value that we can map. What we actually need to do, because the information that we get is like sentences at different seconds within the mapping of the video. So it's like we get one line where I say something and then it breaks, and then we get a whole bunch of information that we don't need, and then more lines that we need. So what we're doing here, right? I know it's a bit confusing, but if you follow me, you'll be fine. So as you can see, we got a whole bunch of this like data, a lot of it that we don't need again. But if you go, I think it's to tracks. Yeah. So if you go tracks, we get this array, this collection, and then another array full of other collections. And as you can see, none of it shows a clear transcript that we can just map and put it somewhere. So what these modules do is they isolate. So if you can think of an iterator as like an isolator of data that we need. So we're iterating through, but only through the information that we actually need. And we do that to get the bundle. So the collection brings us bundles of information, and that's these sentences. So we're isolating on the transcript part, and then we're aggregating them. So we're, of those collections, we're putting them all into a bunch so that we can again isolate them and then do the same thing over until we just have the text conjuncted into one big pile. But that, as you can see here, we've aggregated all of these texts. So we've taken up off a whole bunch of information that we didn't need, isolated them again, so gone through all of them again to then aggregate them with the text, which is what we feed into the AI here. So let me just show you the input is all of this data here, right? Now, from this point, I could well say, I'll show you the prompt in a second from the ChatGPT module, but from this point, we could just make a straight API request using the image thing and said to the AI, look at the content and do this, do this, this. But the thing is that the prompt would be too long. And I've noticed that with these API requests for the image API, they're quite expensive. And so you could run this only a few times and the cost would actually be way higher than if you just optimized it in another way. And what I found was, so there's a filter here that if the AI thinks it's unfit for a tutorial post, so it looks at my video and then decides, okay, is this an actual tutorial post? If not, then it says unfit and it doesn't go past this point. If it does, we feed it into a GPT 4.1 Nano, which is extremely cheap, and we're telling the 4.1 Nano, hey, you're feeding a prompt that needs to be very short and precise to an AI, and you need to look at the LinkedIn post and really view the value that the topic is around, you know? So for example, in this case, we saw that it's talking about one of my posts about a lead researcher, right? And so it took all of this, made some good hooks on its own, honestly. And then it put these into a step-by-step solution for us, and then it created this image, right? Now this image could have been talked about through a longer prompt, which was going to be static, or which means like the same result for each like run of the scenario, or it could be a variable that we pass on to a smaller model, which makes it cheaper, and then we say, hey, make these instructions given the type of post that we've gotten, and feed it into the image API. And that's exactly what we've done here. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's pretty much what's happening here. So I gave it a few examples of, so for example, if it looks at this sort of post, the future of sales is no longer about grunt work, which is actually about the same thing, actually the same topic. So this is the example that I fit it, and then I said the example like result that we're expecting is generate a cartoon-like image that shows the time of 60 hours for a sales rep call, you know, and it has this sort of consistency to it based on these rules that I give the AI. So I don't know if that makes too much sense, but pretty much we're taking the topics that were discussed in the LinkedIn post that were generated here, and we're feeding it through the image generation. Now, from when we're talking about the actual LinkedIn post, we are giving it the prompt saying, "You are a content repurpose expert who has a special knack for writing LinkedIn content. You are very precise and deliberate with your style of writing. Your task is to read over a transcript of one of my YouTube videos and create a LinkedIn version of the post according to the content." Now, I'm not saying remake it just as I said it. I'm saying make it specified to the LinkedIn version of it. So I say, I'll put everything in a single string using this for line breaks, which is what we're gonna which is what we use to format it later on. Do not use any quote marks. Must think about the content of the video and ask yourself, what is the video about? Is it a tutorial? Are these steps to achieve something? So I'm walking the AI through the things that it needs to think about before it actually decides on an output. So I give it all these, and you can pause the video and go over them in detail, but I give all of these guardrails with a bit of examples as well. So these are just some of my YouTube transcripts, and then some of the example outputs that I would like for it to make for a LinkedIn post. So some of these were actually a LinkedIn post that we already have, and I do that twice, and on the third time all I feed is a transcript that we get as a result for that last module, that text aggregator. Cool. Now once we've gotten all of that, right, so we've got the LinkedIn post, we've got the prompt for the image, and the image has actually been created. Again, since this is a customer request, we need to once again pass everything so we can actually map the results of the image request later on down the track. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So we pass this JSON, which is the result of the data. As you can see, we get all of this ugly, scary looking stuff, and we need to pass everything so we can actually use the data. We turn the result of the data, which is a base 64, which is pretty much the format that we get the codified version of the image, and we turn it into binary, which is the only way that we can actually view the image, the result of that code. Once we've done that, we parse the response generated from the LinkedIn search. So if I hover over this result, notice how the generate LinkedIn post starts moving around. That means that this is the content that we're actually going over and replacing with the text parser. So pretty much what this means is whenever you see this kind of dash in, it means a line break. And what Gmail expects for a line break instead is this kind of crocodile mouths with a BR in the middle. And the reason it didn't work in this one is because we didn't have the global match on. So I've made sure to turn that on now. But anyway, from this result, we feed everything into the Gmail, which emails my business partner. The subject is a new LinkedIn post. The text is the result of the text parser. And then we're attaching a file, which is the binary, the photo, right? Which is now binary data. Just make sure to name the file img.jpg so that Gmail actually knows that we're sending over a file or a photo in this case. And then data, we're just going to send the binary result. And that's pretty much it. That's what gets this sort of output here, Now, again, it's well and good putting it into your own workflow, but to actually make it yours, here are the few things that you need to make sure that you have yourself set up. So firstly, you need this sort of request. So you can take mine as an example to make the YouTube transcript scrape. So you need this authorization, the basic space, make sure to put a space behind it after it, and you get this sort of request. And this is the request content. You don't actually need to change all of this because it's going to be imported straight into your workflow, but just so you understand as well, it's really important. And that's the first step, and it takes all of these, as you would have noticed by now, all of these steps to actually make it into a nice transcript for the AI to read. And the other one, which is the other custom request, is the image generation API. Make sure we're going into image generations. We're doing a post request. You have this authorization with the API key, and you have this sort of body. So we're asking for a specific model, and the prompt is the prompt that we get from this AI step here. Okay, and now if you want to tweak this anymore, what you could do is you could do something like adding a Google Docs file, right? Attaching your account to it, and that could just be like the end goal of your automation, you know. So instead of making an email, we'll title this something like YouTube to text, and then the content of this would be this text here. We'd create a document at a chosen drive or something, we'd save it, so document location, wouldn't put it anywhere, that's fine. And then we connect it to, like, delete this one and connect it like just like that. Okay, so that's it for the video today. As mentioned before, all the resources, this make.com scenario and the links to API requests that I make are all available in the description for you to check out and look at. And if you want to work with me and my team directly, then all you need to do is, again, go down to the description and check out the cal.com link to book a free call with us. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.